Yes!
Eververse. Some like it, some hate it, but I don't think anybody loves it. But we can all agree that there's a huge fun factor in collecting the various legendary and exotic weapon and armor ornaments, emotes, and ghost projections, I guess. Okay, maybe not ghost projections, but you get the point. Anyways, Eververse is pretty different compared to what we've seen in the past, and due to the changes, you won't be able to obtain the loot this time around as easily as you could in the previous seasons. In this video, I go over my thoughts about the Eververse in Season of Opulence, as well as some tips on how to accumulate some extra bright dust to make obtaining things a bit easier. So without further ado, let's get it in. First off, I'm really digging this new look. Everything is neatly organized and it's really easy to find exactly what you're looking for. If you're trying to find the items in the current week's rotation that can be purchased with bright dust, scroll to the left side of the screen and click the bottommost icon. If you want to see all the returning Eververse items from year one, scroll over to the right and click on the best of year one Engram icon. This makes it apparent that Bungie is trying to make Eververse as lucrative for themselves and reasonable for us by making all of the knockout list loot indefinitely available for the season at any given time, provided that you pay silver. And I go ahead and say that ever since Prismatic Matrix was retired from the game, it's no big surprise that Eververse is the way that it currently is. I suppose I could be understanding of this due to the fact that Bungie did split from Activision, and it's looking like they're going to need all the support that they can get. And I use the word reasonable semi-loosely because even though I think it's pretty cool that we can directly purchase the aforementioned cosmetics whenever we want, without having to wait for it to drop from an engram, I think it would have been a good idea for everything to have the alternative option to be purchasable with bright dust as well. But if I had to be honest, this probably would have happened only if the bright dust cost was ridiculously high, since it can be earned in game. But then again, these are simply cosmetics and have zero impact and or influence on the gameplay, so it's not really that big of a deal. And speaking of engram, there's no seasonal Eververse engram this time around. So if obtaining all of Season 7's Eververse loot is a goal of yours, you can only do so by purchasing a knockout list loot with silver, or waiting for it to eventually make its way into the list of limited Eververse items that can be purchased for bright dust. Instead, Bungie decided for this season's Eververse engram to include cosmetics from seasons 1, 2, and 3. A lot of people would say that this is lazy and stupid, but to some extent, I'm cool with it. For one, I never got the selfie emote in year 1, and there was no easy way of getting it to drop. For 2, Optimus gear, which contains my all-time favorite Destiny 2 Warlock helmet, has returned with perks, so I was pretty happy to know that this happened. Also, this gives players who didn't own or play Destiny 2 in year 1 a chance to get some classic Eververse loot. Personally, I think it would have been generous if we had a Season 7 Eververse engram alongside the best of year 1 engram before we moved into year 3. If this happened, we get 2 engrams for every level up, similar to how things are done when an event is around. Another interesting thing to note is that all of the new exotic weapon ornaments aren't directly purchasable with silver, which is odd because exotic weapon ornaments are similar to ghost projections and exotic armor ornaments in a sense that they're also part of the duplication protected knockout list. And due to the fact that there's no Eververse engram for Season 7 loot, I haven't found a way to view these ornaments aside from looking at them on websites like light.gg. As far as I'm concerned, there doesn't seem to be a way to view these ornaments in the game at all. But if you found out something that I haven't done, or haven't found out rather, do me a favor and let me know in the comment section. If you plan on eventually collecting everything from the Eververse this season without spending silver, you can easily stay ahead of the game by incorporating the completion of Eververse bounties into your daily routine. Okay, so we've established that getting Eververse loot isn't gonna be the easiest thing to do in Season 7, but fret not. I got a couple tips that have you swimming in bright dust, provided that you play your cards right. Believe it or not, a lot of people to this day do not realize that dismantling Eververse shaders would net you 10 bright dust per dismantle. So if you dismantle 10 copies of your favorite shaders, such as Golden Trace or Noble Constant Red, that'll get you 100 bright dust. Also, Eververse armor, ghosts, ships, and sparrows of the legendary rarity have a payout of 100 bright dust when dismantled. And due to the fact that a decent amount of legendary Eververse vehicles and ghosts are reskins, I usually dismantle them the second that they drop from a bright engram. Also, I wouldn't recommend hanging on to exotic ghosts, ships, and sparrows if you aren't using them. Dismantle any of these and you will get 500 bright dust every time. I play Destiny 2 pretty frequently, so in the past couple of seasons, I've managed to obtain everything that Eververse has to offer within the first month and a half of the season being out. So anything after that point is bright dust fodder, making it 100% safe to dismantle it. Also, at this point in time, everybody who plays Destiny 2 probably has a couple hundred Eververse bounty notes, and it's probably because Eververse isn't the most conventional part of the gameplay experience. I mean, yeah, you get a bright engram every time you surpass the maximum EXP threshold, and everybody likes armor and weapon ornaments, but how many people actually pay attention to the Eververse bounties? To be blatantly honest with you, I was one of these people until I realized how much bright dust I could accumulate every week. If you weren't already aware, you get Eververse bounty notes simply by decrypting Eververse engrams. If you play the game regularly, you will have a bunch of them in no time. Okay, so check this out. Every reset day, Test Everest will have 7 new bounties available, and they all reward you with bright dust and require Eververse bounty notes to be purchased. As expected, the more difficult bounties have the highest payout, but will require you to fork over more Eververse bounty notes to attain them, whereas the less demanding bounties only require 1 or 2 or maybe 3 bounty notes to obtain. At any given time, Test will have 4 bounties that give you 20 bright dust each and require 1 Eververse bounty note to purchase, 2 bounties that reward 70 bright dust but require 3 bounty notes to purchase, and 1 bounty with a payout of 150 bright dust but requires 6 bounty notes to purchase. If you complete all 7 of these bounties, you will be 370 bright dust richer. Now, that may not sound like a lot, but the cool thing about Eververse bounties is that they can be recompleted as many times as you want in a single day. The only catch is that you have to have the Eververse bounty notes to continue buying them. So you're technically not limited to getting only 370 bright dust a week from these. Aside from dismantling Eververse gear like I previously mentioned, I've managed to accumulate so much bright dust over time from buying the Eververse bounties and doing tasks that I normally do. For example, this bounty states that I have to complete 5 strikes and I get 150 bright dust. Well, I already play a decent amount of strikes every week, so this one will literally unlock naturally for me. And it's just that simple. This bounty requires me to kill Vex with void damage, and obviously killing Vex, so it'll unlock through regular gameplay. I don't have to necessarily go out of my way to do it, and even if I did, it isn't even that difficult. Now, something like this that will require me to collect 15 materials on any planet isn't something that I'll ever have or will ever do, so I always skip out on this one. I don't find it entertaining to sit on a planet and collect materials, but if you can incorporate this into your natural gameplay, then go for it. But remember, the goal is for this to be as painless as possible and not to provide an extra layer of grind. Also, one more thing. Bungie stated that some time ago that Eververse loot will no longer grant you bright dust when dismantled. You will get legendary shards instead. So I highly suggest getting rid of everything that you own from the Eververse before September 17, which is in Season 8. Season 8 will also implement bright dust as a completion reward for bounties outside of Eververse. Alright, that's pretty much it. As insinuated previously, Eververse isn't anybody's favorite, but it is pretty fun to collect the cosmetics from it. Some people don't agree with microtransactions, me being one of them, but I suppose that if every dollar spent on Eververse loot goes towards supporting Bungie, I suppose that is fine. But that does it for this one, everybody. If you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor and thumb wrestle that like button. And if you're new to my neck of the woods, go ahead and subscribe to the channel for more elite gaming content. But with that being stated, 1LHD is over and out. Y'all take it easy.
I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.